Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to History of English Literature. And today we are going to expose about Romantic and Victorian literature with me, Maria Zakia Alfisuma. Okay, first of all, let me try to remind you again about the timeline of history of English literature. We have already explained, learned about Old English literature, Middle English literature, Elizabethan literature, 17th and 18th century literature. Then now here we focus to learn about Romantics and Victorian literature. Okay, first of all, in the romantic literature is that literary works that's published um, in the certain time which has a certain characteristic, and then the main characteristic of this period is about nature. Yeah, look at this one. uh, in this one, it is the beautiful scenery of the beautiful flowers, daffodils, and then here this is also a beautiful scenery and nature that's about rainbow. Which one do you like? Okay, um, talking about romantic, we are talking about emotions. We are talking about our heart, our soul, our feeling. Yeah, so we'll try to express our feeling here in the romantic literature. Okay, first of all, I would like to give the historical background why romanticism is appear in England. First of all, in the previous era, there is an enlightenment. Yeah, in the enlightenment, uh, the writers valued reasons, logic, and thought. And then this is totally different with the romanticism. In the romanticism here, the writers tends to value emotions, feeling, imaginations, heart, mind, and soul. Yeah. So because of the previous era, the writers tend to value logic. So in this era, most of the writer they tends to value the expressions of the heart of their feeling, imaginations, explore the imaginations instead of logic and thought. Yeah. Okay, in the previous era, uh, the rising of the industry, science, technology, and this for some of the writers, for some of the artists, they would like to giving back the nature of England, in which that prior to the industry, prior to the industrial revolutions, England is the agricultural kingdom. Yeah, so there are so many nature that they would like to explore, they would like to show, they would like to bring back the conditions of England, uh, which is surrounded by nature, not by pollutions or the industrial era or in the technology. Okay, um, Enlightenment. In the Enlightenment, it's about the living in the city, or about the romanticism. It focused on the rural area. Yeah. So, for example, like the poem of daffodils. Yeah. We imagine about the rural area in the lake. Yeah. That's surrounded by the garden of daffodil. Okay, Enlightenment writers wrote about objective issues that concern on society as a whole, such as politics and religions. Previously, we have exposed that the historical time in the 18th century literature, that there are so many houses in which that the upper and middle classes they spend most of their time to discussing about political issues and everything related to the politics and also religions. Here in the Romantic era, the writers wrote about subjective experience of the individuals, such as the dreams, hopes, and desires. Okay, And the last, if the Enlightenment writers focus mainly on adult concerns, primarily those on the ruling class, uh, so that some of the literary books, they have a genre of satire or irony. However, in the romanticism, it seems like a nostalgia, yeah? Reflected to the childhood, true love, and the common man. Yeah? So that's the differences between Enlightenment and then Romantic as the historical background of this era. Okay, so this is the characteristic of the Romanticism, yeah. Uh, Enlightenment. Uh, it will be start with Enlightenment first. If in the Enlightenment, poetry is a mirror of nature, uh, it means that people aren't going to change for better or for worse. Technology is going to be so cool. All in all, the future will be okay. Uh, this is poetry. It seems like the mirror of nature, but in the romantic, poetry as an autonomous creations and expressions of self. Yeah, it's based on the statement by William Wordsworth as the prominent poet in this era. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow, the powerful of feelings recollected in tranquility. Yeah? So the keyword here in the poem of the Romanticism is feeling, nature, heart, mind, and soul. Okay. Besides the poem, we come to the prose here. The prose here, for example, like novels. Yeah. If in the previous genre in the 18th century literature, the novels has a genre of satire, but here this is the genre of this time. The mostly of the novels is about Gothic fiction. Yeah, what is Gothic fiction? Gothic fiction is a genre of literature that combines fictions and horror. Yeah, this is to terrify the reader, to make us make us afraid with something with the atmosphere. Yeah? Possible features in the Gothic novel are monsters, yeah. So some of the characters in the Gothic novel is as monster, ghosts, curses, hidden rooms, and witchcraft. Gothic tales usually take place in a locations such as castles, monasteries, and cemeteries. Here, for example, like this is one of the leading novels in the Gothic fictions, Jane Austen, Northanger Abbey. Look at the locations or the setting here. The setting here is in a castle. Yeah? So this is the common things that in the Gothic or horror novels, the setting or atmosphere is in the castle. And then the next, this is also the example of the Gothic fictions in the Romantic era. What is that? This is Frankenstein. Yeah, it's written by Mary Shelley, and it's considered as the best or the famous Gothic fictions in the Romantic era. And I think that all of you must be familiar with the character of Frankenstein here. Yeah. Okay, this Gothic fictions combine the science fictions and horror. Yeah, the horror itself is created by the character of monster here. Yeah, monster created by the Frankenstein. Actually, the Frankenstein is the scientist who create a monster. The monster itself has no name. Yeah, but people outside they think that the Frankenstein is the name of the monster, but it's not. That's the name of the scientist who created the monster. Okay, what about the setting in the Frankenstein? Of course, the setting is in the nature, in the mountain, cemeteries, and also in the castle, the old building. Okay, now I would like to giving the list of the poems and also prose published in the Romantic era. Here, for the poem, yeah, for the poem here, the first is the William Blake's Song of Innocence. This is talking about the childhood in the Victory. We know that this romantic era uh, is the era of the Industrial Revolution. So that there were many victories, and the Song of Innocence here is one of the poem that take the characters and also the setting in the victory. Yeah? Um, the childhood, yeah, is also the theme in the William Blake's here. For example, one of the poems in this Song of Innocence is the Chimney Sweeper. Sweeper is one of the leading poems in this collections of poems. And the second one is William Wordsworth, Lyrical Ballads. Yeah, this is also poem collections written by William Wordsworth, and one of the leading poem. Yeah, one of the famous poem here is the Daffodils. The Daffodils is one of the famous poem. The third one, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Lord Byron, Percy Bysshe Shelley, and John Keats. And then for the prose, the first is Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. This is a novel about two loves. Yeah. Uh, the setting of this novel is in the nature in the rural of England, and this is so impressive novels about love story. Mary Shelley Frankenstein and Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe Beverly. This is the example of the poem in the Romantic era. The title is I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. And then the other name is the Daffodils. Okay, look at this one. We are going to take a look on the rhyme of this poem. D-S-D-S-A-B-A-B. It means that this is rhyming. Yeah. Besides that, this poem is the expressions. The expression of this poem is showing about nature. Look at this one. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over valleys and hills. Okay, there are so many vocabularies of nature here. For example, like cloud, vales, hills, a host of golden daffodils, yeah, breeze, Milky Way. So all of this try to make us imagine about the world that's so peace here. Okay. Uh, Next, we are going to go to the Victorian literature. Okay, in the Victorian literature here is the literary works, which is published in the era of Queen Victoria. Yeah, what happened here? What is the historical background of this era? Yeah, this is the peak of the industrial revolutions. Yeah, this is the peak of the industrial revolution atau puncak dari revolusi industri. Yeah, so the urbanizations here. Look at this one. This is how is the what is it, how is the setting of the industrial revolutions, full of factory urbanizations, crowded people in the city. Yeah? Besides that, England also becoming the leading kingdom here. As the success in the industrial time. Okay, we go forth to the literature in the Victorian era here. Okay, for the literature, the dominant genre of the literature here is the prose, about prose or novel that depict the social problems in the time of the Queen Victoria, and it's called as the realism novels. Yeah, the novels that portray the social conditions of the people, of the environment in the Victorian era. Okay, besides the realism novel, there is also science and detective fictions, children literature, and Gothic fictions is still also developed. And then poetry is used as socially useful form, and then drama start to develop here as the as the opening of the new theater, so that drama is begin to flourish here. Okay, let's check some of the novels that's in this era. The first one is here. If we look at the picture of uh, this verse, look at this verse, Wuthering Heights. Yeah, if you look at the picture here, it's a castle. Yeah, so it's identical with the novel of Gothic. Yeah, with the an which have horror horror setting, horror atmosphere here. Wuthering Heights is a Gothic novel. Dracula, yeah, it's also another famous Gothic novels produced in the Victorian times. Okay, what about realism novel? Realism novel. Here, this is the example of the realism novel, Oliver Twist, yeah, written by Charles Dickens. This novel talking about how is the portrait of the children as an orphan, and how he has to struggle with the with the live in the industrial revolutions with the livings here. And then also Mary Burton Elizabeth by Elizabeth Gaskell. And then this one is the example of the detective fiction written by Sherlock Holmes. Okay, children literature, great adventure stories, and then Alice in Wonderland, also example of the children literature. And then the drama, here is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. Yeah, this is the list. This is the detail of the list of the realism or social problem novel. Uh, Charles Dickens, yeah, Oliver Twist, Charles Dickens. This is the authors that write some of the leading novels about realism, portray about the environment or the real conditions of England at the time. Oliver Twist, David Copperfield, Hard Times, A Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations, and so on. Elizabeth Gaskell, George Eliot, Middlemarch, Silas Manor, Thomas Hardy, William Thackeray. All of this novel is called as the social problem novel or realism, yeah, or realist novel. Okay, and then the next is a Gothic novels and also a novel about woman. This one is Bram Stoker Dracula, The Picture of Dorian Gray, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, Agnes Grey. Yeah, this is the example. And as a here, Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, and Anne Bronte are the women authors here. Yeah, this is about this one is about Gothic novel. So the setting, the atmosphere, and some of the characters, there is have an element of Gothic here. Dracula. This is the living. I think that all of you know about this one, Dracula. Okay. Children literature. Which one of this novel that you are famous with? I think that you are famous with the story of Alice in Wonderland, because it has already been adapted so many times, yes, several times in the big movies. Charles Dickens, History of England, Black Beauty, adventure novel, and school stories. The novels has a setting of the school stories, yeah, and juvenile fiction. And then the detective fiction here. Sherlock Holmes, Moonstone, Missing Miller, and so on. And then the science fictions, for example, like The Time Machine. Okay, what about the poem here? This is some of the example of the poems, and the famous poet here is Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Lord Tennyson, Yeats, and Matthew Arnold. Yeah. What about the play or drama? This one is the most famous poem, most famous play here, The Importance of Being Earnest. Yeah. Besides that, there's also George Bernard Shaw, Arms and the Man, and Riders to the Sea, written by John Millington Synge. Okay, I'll give you some of the examples, two examples of the poem in this era. This one is London by Matthew Arnold. Yeah, we are going to take a look here on the rhyme. GN and the okay, this is rhyming. Yeah, so certain rules of the poetic forms is used here, and then also in here. Okay, rhyming poem here. Okay,